I watched a podcast the other day with Joe Rogan and Stephen Meyer, and I didn't know who Stephen C. Meyer was.
That was a good one, wasn't it?
And he made a really compelling case, and we can just touch on this quickly because we don't have to get super, super deep into it, but he made a really compelling case for creative intelligence, and it was a scientific case. You know, so we've talked about this before. It's like the reason that I feel like I don't get a lot out of, I would say, preachers at a church that I could attend locally is like when a lot of churches, it's like they're speaking to they're making, they're doing theistic work. So they're making arguments based on people that already believe in Christianity. You know what I'm saying? So it's more like, hey, this is what that means in the context of what Jesus said and what the Bible says and whatever. But if you're somebody who is not fully entrenched in Christianity, though, it's almost like, okay, but like if I'm not already on board with the presupposition, then all of this is just like.
Well, for some people, not everybody, but yeah.
Well, I'm saying if you are not, I mean, I think there can be.
For you, I think that's true. Not everybody thinks that way though.
Yeah.
Some people do. I think now I'm not saying you don't understand this, but trying to explain a God that doesn't exist in our physical world we're not trying to explain a created God. We're explaining a God that exists out of creation. So for some people, you need the scientific evidence that exists in our world. Some people, I think, already have a pre-assumption or are already more sensitive to the topic of it not existing in another world, so they go into
That's a good point.
more open.
That's a good point.
So I'm saying, no, I'm more like you, actually.
Yeah.
But like, some people aren't that way. Like,
that's true.
People that I know who have converted.
Let me give you just a quick overview of his argument, which I'm sure you've heard some of these arguments. You listen to Frank Turek and such, but basically he provides the evidence for the Big Bang Theory being correct. Back in the 50s, the popular scientific consensus was that the universe did not have a beginning. And to concede that the universe had a beginning would be to concede points towards the theistic belief, right? And then science, irrespective of religion, found out that basically they could track back the dispersion and expansion of the universe mathematically to, if we rewind it comes to a single point. So that indicates that there was a beginning. They still have the problem of how do you get matter out of nothing? That violates, you know what I'm saying, that violates certain laws of physics. That's a miracle in itself. But what basically Stephen Meyer was saying is like, given that, and given it's a fine-tuning argument, which is like another thing in science is the reason that's so impossible is because in order to create everything and to create life, the odds at which all of these different particles and things would come together in a way that would create systems like this at random are so preposterous that they don't know what to do with the information. And so Stephen Meyer makes the case that it's like we are like theories are all theories. Nobody actually knows, and he's like we should default to the one that seems the most likely based on the given evidence. And he's like, anytime we see evidence of, like he gives an example of like DNA. So DNA is a code that makes up the producing the production of proteins that create our body. And he says basically like if we were to find a code anywhere else, we would assume that someone wrote that code. We have examples of that. He said that you go in. One example he gave is you go into the British Museum and you see the Rosetta Stone. And it has inscriptions. And it is like basically the materialist worldview would be like, oh, this was made from erosion and the wind and things like that. But nobody assumes that. Actually, people assume that these inscriptions are actually from some culture that we're not, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That goes back. And on top of that, he said if you assume that it's just erosion or whatever, you're actually robbing yourself of the profoundness of assuming differently and then decoding what it means and what, you know what I'm saying, from that creative perspective. He makes a way better case than me. I'm just trying to relay some of the things. That dude's very, very smart. But I found it really compelling because he didn't bring in at any point any personal experience or theistic reason for his arguments. They were purely scientific arguments in favor of his belief. And he is a Christian. But I was just like, this is impressive. Like,
Right.
I'm like, this seems really intuitive to me. And he really pointed out, I think this is what resonated with me the most, is that he pointed out the hypocrisy of the scientific community being not being open to the possibility of creative intelligence. They're windowing that possibility off and trying to subscribe purely to materialistic ends for the science, and that's like anti-science.
Yeah, baby, need top 5 when I'm done going mental. Yeah, I'm locked in.